is the Church of Scientology so afraid of?
This is SPTV.
Hello, everyone.
Hi,
Hi, Cassie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, we are good. We're here, you guys. Cassie and I have been working behind the scenes, really getting into the weeds of just stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense, right, Cassie?
Right.
We wanted to start here with the description of what we're going to be getting into today. And this is a quote that we wanted to read you from Ashton Kutcher, you guys. We need your help. Every single dollar that we raise is going toward building software tools that kids being abused today will have the chance to just be kids, explained Ashton Kutcher. It is truly a noble cause, isn't it? Here's a man who appears to be passionately advocating for the protection of children, claiming to have met countless victims of sexual abuse and expressing deep empathy for their heartbreaking experiences. What a commendable stance to take. But wait, let's take a closer look at the perplexing paradox that is Ashton Kutcher's involvement. While he champions the cause of abused children, he's also known to have a front row seat at the inner workings of the Celebrity Center and the Manor Hotel, both owned and operated by the Church of Scientology. These institutions, as we all know, have less than a stellar track record when it comes to appropriate interactions with minors, speaking from firsthand experience. To add to the puzzlement, Kutcher's best buddy, Danny Masterson, who stands convicted of serial R. Astonishingly, Kutcher has publicly extolled Masterson's moral character post his conviction. It begs the question, how can an advocate for victims of SA on one hand and then on the other one support a convicted serial R who was a so-called close friend? And then there's the matter of Kutcher's role as the chairman of the board of the Thorne organization, a multi-million-dollar 501c organization supposedly committed to combating child abuse. One can't help but wonder how these connections align. Thorne, after all, has actively sought substantial funding from Congress, and its leadership appears to be in the hands of someone so astonishingly tone-deaf that it boggles the mind, especially when the so-called chairman of the board of over a decade steps down when the facade is brought to question. Why step down when he could have so easily stepped up? When are any of these 501c organizations ever going to experience any real transparency about what they're actually doing? It seems like a perpetual cycle of rhetoric without accountability, a grand performance without substance. It's giving one thing and doing another. So perhaps it's time for some real soul searching and consistency in your actions and affiliations, Ashton Kutcher. So that's what I wanted to say, Cassie. What do you have to say?
I mean, yeah, that's such a great summary of what we're going to talk about, what I wanted to talk about. Also, it goes beyond just Ashton Kutcher, right? So we have 3 organizations right now that are kind of under the microscope for claiming to combat child trafficking in some form or another. We have Ashton Kutcher and Thorne, which everyone's questioning, rightfully so, because of the letters that he and Mila wrote, and everybody, that was like the one thing that ripped the veil and had people start looking into what this is. We have Operation Underground Railroad, which is the organization that was the subject of the Sound of Freedom movie. Tim Ballard started Operation Underground Railroad. He's a member of the Mormon Church. The LDS Church falls under the culty umbrella. And there are many questionable things within Operation Underground Railroad and if they are actually helping children or not, which we can get into. And then we have this little organization called Slavery Free World that was founded by Marisol Nichols, who, as you well know, is a Scientologist. So again, with all of those things, exactly what you said about Ashton Kutcher can apply to Marisol, where it's like, okay, if you're worried about combating child trafficking, why don't you look at the organization that you give all your money to? And Tim Ballard, the same, as a member of the Mormon Church. The Mormon Church has faced accusations of child trafficking and covering up for child abusers, moving them around, not sending them to law enforcement, doing everything they can to keep it under wraps. So if these people are so concerned with these horrific crimes, and if they are doing what they claim to be doing with the money that they're bringing in, why are they not addressing the institutions that they're a part of? It's all right there.
It's literally all right there. And we have three people here. Like we have three groups: Hollywood, Scientology, and Mormons.
Mhm.
So Hollywood, who also is weirdly enough all over these so-called problems of trafficking of minors, you guys, when they themselves have a horrendous record of adulticizing kids for themselves, putting them in inappropriate roles, all done under the disguise of art. Oh, yeah, it's really art. So we can just do whatever in the hell we want to kids because this kid is really going to be a good person to subject to this art form that we're having. And then you have the Mormons and Scientology, running under the cover of so-called religion. But, all these, false umbrellas, Cassie, really raise questions about, what is actually going on and what's being done to kids by these organizations that supposed and people that really are pitching themselves as, advocates for kids. So how can they be advocates for kids when they abuse kids themselves at a grand scale?
Yeah, exactly. I made a list actually of some of the issues that all three of these organizations have in common. If you want me to share, and you can like give some commentary on some of the issues that we're finding in between all of them. Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, one thing that all three of these nonprofits do is they perpetuate false statistics of child trafficking. Either they focus on only one area and inflate numbers and inflate issues. Ashton Kutcher has actually been criticized for this in the past. Before this all happened with Danny Masterson, Thorne has been called out for using false statistics and claims for child trafficking that have never been proven, that don't have any kind of basis. I think the ones that they used were actually taken from a study that very clearly in the study said that these are assumptions of statistics that might be occurring, but we have no way of knowing if this is true or not. And they use these false statistics, and in the case of Operation Underground Railroad, fake stories that they've had to combine different missions that they've gone on and literally manufacture things that never occurred in order to create like fake manufactured outrage and emotion to get people behind this. And then they use celebrities, in Thorne's case, Ashton Kutcher and Demi Moore, Marisol Nichols as a celebrity, and Tim Ballard wanted to be his own celebrity. He's using a lot of media and these movies to try to bolster himself to a celebrity status in order to bring people in to give him money to this organization. And ultimately, he wants people to be saved into the Mormon church. But they all three are using this celebrity status, false narrative, and manufactured rage to get people to donate money, is what they're doing.
And a lot of donations that are flowing into these organizations, you guys, from all places that, even like a small GTS away, we find out that, even foreign countries are giving, you know, a ton of money to these organizations, these so-called, anti-trafficking of kids organizations. And to your point, Cassie, that you're talking about, like all of these false statistics, it's like, you know, all this misinformation that gets spread to really make these issues of trafficking so outrageous to really, gather all these people wanting to donate because nobody wants to hear the horrors of kids being abused. But it's just really gets used as a talking point. And again, in what world can Ashton say that he really cares about kids when, a few blocks away from Danny's house where he used to party all the time is literally a hotel staffed with minors, with kids that are not being able to be kids, like Ashton just said in his
Mhm.
first quote. Oh yeah, we really want to have kids be kids, but it's like, kids cannot be kids inside that Manor Hotel. We have Liz Ferris that was, stuck in that hotel when she was a minor. We have Nora from Oh No Nora. She was another minor that was in those hotels. And I trained so many of those minors that were sent across state lines to Florida when I was in the Florida location, Cassie, where they would train minors to basically become, slaves for celebrities. I mean, that's what we were really actually grooming them to be by having them do these courses that then, they would be tasked to service the celebrity. That's what they called it, serviced.
Yeah. Yeah, and so how can you say that you're saving children when you full well know that this is going on behind the scenes? Somebody said that they're having my sound is like echoing a little bit. Can you hear it echoing?
Mm, no, not really.
Okay, I'll just keep going. I can mess with it in a second if it's really bad. Um,
Yeah, tell us, you
but
guys.
another
Tell us if
thing,
it's bad. I just lowered your volume. Maybe I don't know if that's gonna make any difference, but I just lowered your volume. So
okay, that sounds a little bit better,
okay,
I think. I could hear it a tiny bit, but not really.
okay.
Um, okay, so another thing that all 3 of these organizations have in common is they all had a sexual predator on their board. So Thorne had one of their board members that was investing in the tech that Thorne uses was accused of sexual assault by at least one woman, I think maybe two. And they settled out of court for that. So there was never like a conviction. There was like a mediation and a settlement. But that's not a good look to have someone who essays people on a board of a child trafficking organization. Operation Underground Railroad, Tim Ballard himself has been accused of assault by 7 different women, and those were only women that were employed by Operation Underground Railroad. There are likely more because that was only from an internal investigation, and that didn't include volunteers or vendors or like other people they came in contact with. And then another big story that's come out over the last couple of weeks is a man named Paul Hutchinson who invested in the Sound of Freedom movie and who spent a lot of time in Operation Underground Railroad, was accused on one of the missions or jumps that they called them of being inappropriate with a minor. And he was playing a part, but he did things that he didn't have to do to play that part and kind of used playing the part as an excuse. And when speaking to other law enforcement officers that work in child trafficking, they were like, that is absolutely not normal. Like that doesn't just happen on these missions or when we go in to try to save these kids. There should be no reason. I don't want to talk about it too in depth. One, because it's very upsetting. Two, because of YouTube. So if you guys Google Sound of Freedom, Paul Hutchinson, recent accusations, you can get some of the details on it. But it was truly horrifying. And then Marisol Nichols had Tim Ballard as like the main member of her board. When you would go to Slavery Free World and look at their team and the board members, Tim Ballard showed up first. Now, she has since removed him from that. So when I first started covering Marisol Nichols in Slavery Free World, like 1 or 2 months ago, he was there and I have a screenshot. And when I went to go back and look at it after these accusations have come out about him, it was gone. So, don't know what that's about, but he helped her start Slavery Free World. They were like very closely connected for a long time. So, again, not only is the call coming from inside the house with the churches or Hollywood or the things that these founders are part of, but it's literally on their board for these nonprofits. Why is this? I don't know why people even think Marisol Nichols is fine for having this organization with all we know about Scientology anyway. But geez, how can we accept this as normal and fine because they're saving children, which we may or may not have any proof of anyway.
Well, and just to add something about Marisol, Cassie, Marisol belongs to an organization, you guys, where self-admitted abusers are cradled and canoodled, are allowed to launder their felonies, their full self-admissions, with every detail of what in the hell they did inside those hotels. So that's what's, very, very troubling about Marisol, who's been associated with this organization for decades. Literally, she's been a Scientologist since the 90s. So anyone that is a Scientologist that goes into those hotels gets asked if they've had any felonies for which they have not been arrested. And in those hotels, they allow people to self-incriminate, and they allow people to literally not face any consequences for their self-incrimination under the guise that they're cleaning them, under the guise that they have a technology that is so special that any self-admitted felony just floats, because this technology that Owen Harvard developed apparently allows self-admitted felons to float literally things they did in their past that are criminal in nature and pay money to have that done. Very much like what actually Danny Masterson did. I mean, Miranda Scoggins, that was on the record being his ethics officer, she was a minor that was tapped to become an ethics officer. So in what world can an adult go to a hotel to tell a minor that they've committed Class A felonies, and the minors are tasked to data mine those felonies out of the adults? I mean, I would know. I was one of those minors tapped to do that, and I did that. I did that for several adults inside those hotels. Never mind, I was in Florida. But the thing about Scientology is that every one of their centers operates under the same thing. So this was not a Florida exclusive. They were doing this at their celebrity center, allowing actors to come in and incriminate themselves and get, cradled and canoodled and protected and make sure that nobody finds out about it. And, oh, now that you really told us everything, nothing's going to happen to you. So it's just so corrupt. It's just so corrupt.
It
And
is.
these 501Cs just, I mean, did you know the numbers of how much money Thorne brought in and how much money they were even paying themselves for, like?
I don't, but I assume that it was a lot. I do know I've done a lot more research on Operation Underground Railroad than I have on Thorne. I know for Operation Underground Railroad that they have like hordes of money in their bank account that they're not doing anything with, like millions and millions of dollars. And Tim Ballard's income from Operation Underground Railroad has like skyrocketed over the years. Like it used to be like $100,000 a year, and then it went up to like $500,000 a year, and then it was over $1 million a year. And the Mormon Church is also known for hoarding money and saving it for, I don't know if it's like end times that they're saving it for, or if they think they're going to be on the earth when everybody leaves and the apocalypse happens. I'm not sure, but I know it's part of like Mormon doctrine. Like there's a reason they hoard money, and Operation Underground Railroad does the same thing. I was going to talk about that a little bit in this next part, that like these organizations, do they even do what they say they do? Are they even doing with the money that people are donating? Is anything actually even happening to the children? Because we know Operation Underground Railroad's hoarding it, paying Tim Ballard a lot of money. They also spend a lot of money on their fundraising events. So they spend like millions of dollars and have like Tim Ballard drop in from helicopters and do crazy things for these fundraisers to raise millions and millions more. But then what? We know that their missions that they went on were largely for a long time guided by a psychic who was channeling a prophet from the Mormon church from like 600 BC. And they were using that information from a psychic, unverified, no intelligence whatsoever, to go on these missions to find children that were ultimately unsuccessful. I think they have worked with government agencies and have done some successful things in the past, but they were usually the successful ones are in partnership with other government agencies. And so with Thorne, I know it's similar where they have raised a lot, like millions and millions of dollars. And I think, and no one really knows what they do. So a lot of people that are very familiar with nonprofits have tried to nail down what is Thorne even doing with these donations and with this money. They have software that they've developed or have developed with other tech companies that allegedly is supposed to help children online, like be safer on the internet, but it's not clear like exactly what they do. And I know that the board members' salaries have gone up consistently year over year, with all the millions that are going in. I don't know that they're spending the money on this software. And people have speculated that the companies developing the software are using the front of the nonprofit and child trafficking to sell the software to government agencies. So it's kind of like a way of going behind certifications and normal checks and balances to sell things at a high dollar to government agencies that maybe wouldn't have happened any other way.
And this is where we have another cult come in, another culture, the tech bros, right? The tech bros of
Mhm.
Silicon Valley, who, really tapped Ashton as a mouthpiece because, he can learn a script and then he can talk. But I've been listening to a lot of the interviews that he's done, Cassie, and very, very much like all cults, right? They speak their own language. They learn these ridiculous corporate talk, investor tech bro corporate talk to sort of inflate their pitch and sort of make it look like they really know what in the hell they're talking about. But when you really actually hear what they're saying, they're just moving their mouth and nothing they're saying actually makes sense, but
Mhm.
they kind of use that as a way to come across very intellectual. But when you really actually see, they're just like spouting words that, they're very like corporate tech bro words and investor words, but they don't mean anything in reality. They're not translating into anything other than a pitch. It's just a pitch, a money grab pitch.
Yeah, and that's a common thing with cult leaders too, right? Daniela Mestenik Young, the group behavior girl, who's a scholar of group behavior, calls it trans talk. You know, they say a lot of words, and there is a psychological phenomenon when you say a lot of words, it's going to sound like you're making a point, even if no points are made. And they do. I'm so glad that you have been listening to like his interviews and stuff, because that's exactly what it sounds like. They do these interviews and there's a lot of talking, but no one knows what they're saying. Like no one actually knows what is happening. And another tactic of cult like dynamics or undue influence or manipulation is being able to use something very emotionally charged and something that everyone usually would agree with to distract from what you're actually doing. So, like, even in Scientology, just being able to point to like good things that they're doing. That's why they have the volunteers that they send out to like different disasters that are like handing out water and supposedly helping people, but then they're like giving them personality tests and they're not actually really doing anything. A lot of really culty organizations do that. And I think that all three of these nonprofits profits are using this hot topic of child trafficking to distract from whatever it is that they're doing that's probably illegal, that we may not know yet, and we may not have proof of like what it is that they're doing wrong, but we just something's up. Like some things are not adding up, and there are so many coercive control red flags going on here. And I'm glad that we're talking about it, but it's really wild. It's wild to see. And I have a theory. I have some theories on what might be going on, but I want to know what you think they might be like covering up.
Yeah, I mean, what I've actually done also to understand how vapid these pitches are, you guys, and we're going to do some reaction videos coming up, because there are people that are doing the work of anti-trafficking, and I found out some people that are
Mm-hmm.
that do have serious law enforcement background, serious military background, men that, when they speak, it's not just vapid platitudes coming out of their mouth, and they actually do understand the problem because they have personally dealt with it. So I was going to be doing actually a reaction video of this guy that I found, that was ex-military, that has a 501c, that worked actually underground for a very long time. They didn't want to get the credit. They didn't want to get the PR. It wasn't about that. They did a lot of work with law enforcement to stamp out these things. And I think that's what we need to see, right? Like when you see people that really actually understand what they're talking about, like even like the whistleblower that I covered about that did that in the White House. I forget her name right now. I think her name is Madeline, and she was a whistleblower from that was in one of the processing centers of the miners, of migrant miners that were being like shipped off to all kinds of people that were wanting to be, foster parents, but they were just literally getting their minors sent to them and then abusing them, and she was calling it out. So it's very easy to see when people actually are authentic and actually care, and when people are just doing the pitch. Like, we covered Ashton Kutcher's pitch to Congress, and actually really kind of breaking down what he's saying. It just is actually like nauseating, honestly, because it's like, who's really falling for this, And well,
Mm-hmm.
actually, what we covered there is like, who's falling for this? All these dinosaurs from Congress, that when the tech bros come and spout out all these things, they have no idea what they're saying. And because the
Yeah,
Congress people don't want to look like idiots, they just go, okay, when should we write your next check? But they actually don't understand what is being pitched to them. So I even think even the Congress people don't even know what in the hell anyone's talking about, but just to save their own
I
face, they
agree.
just go along with it.
Yeah, I think that's another false narrative that all three of these organizations perpetuate, is that other government agencies aren't working on child trafficking. That like they make it sound like no other, definitely not the US government, and definitely like no other governments are doing work on this, and that's just not true. And like you're saying, there are people doing this work, doing a great job. There are other organizations you can donate to that are actually doing what they say they're doing with the money. There's a lot of transparency, and governments do a lot of work on this as well. And there are a lot of stings, and there are a lot of situations where they do rescue children from trafficking. But I think that like partnered with our idea as Americans of what trafficking looks like, or what child trafficking is, allows these, again, very emotionally charged, very sensationalized narratives to be pushed that are not based in reality. There's nothing real about what they're sharing or what they're doing. So what are they doing? That's always my question. Is like, what are you doing then? Why?
Well, in the misinformation, like, Marisol Nichols, for example, right? Like going out and really showing that trafficking only happens in city motels, you guys.
Right.
I mean, these elites cannot stop pitching that the trafficking of kids only happens in truck stops and city motels, and that's where all
Mhm.
these operations, that they videotape are always conducted. They never conducted at the Four Seasons. So I guess
Right.
that, all you have to do to be a trafficker is, you know, get yourself a luxury hotel, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden no one will suspect anything. Because when have you ever heard of any trafficking happening in any luxury establishment? I mean, none. So going back to
Yeah.
that sensationalization, right? And it's like, we that were trafficked as kids into the Fort Harrison Hotel in Florida or the Manor Hotel in Los Angeles, like, we weren't chained. We weren't put into some, all of these like basement things that it's so seedy, it's so dirty, all the kids are chained and da da da. No, we were being offered, we were being groomed, we were being presented on silver platters, and we thought we were part of something legit. And a
Mhm.
lot of these trafficking victims end up feeling like they're part of something legit. Never mind that they've been dehumanized, sometimes past the point of actual recognition, because that's what this crime entails, you guys, is dehumanizing, dehumanizing, dehumanizing. And
Yeah. I'm sorry if you can hear the four-wheelers in the background of my video.
oh,
The work never stops here,
okay.
so I guess we can't take a pause on the four-wheelers and the mowing.
Gotcha.
If you're wondering, if you hear the grumbling, that's what's going on. Um, that's exactly the issue, right? Because trafficking and child trafficking of any kind is a cult in itself, right? It operates through coercive control.
Yeah.
So maybe, a huge basis of the misunderstanding is as Americans, we also still have so far to go in understanding coercive control. And Congress has a really, really long way to go in understanding it. And our laws don't really haven't evolved to understand coercive control. So there's from like the ground up, there's this huge misunderstanding that these organizations I think are profiting off of. They're benefiting from it. And maybe it's just as simple as they're making money, right? I think there are a lot of Christian celebrities or Christians that just have grown up in different churches, different denominations that are very wealthy and well known in those circles that start their own churches, right? They start their own nonprofits. Sean Foyt is a great example of this. He is a Christian nationalist. And he grew up in various different organizations, but he now has his own nonprofits and he goes around worshiping and preaching and making a huge amount of money that he funnels through all of his nonprofits. They're all nonprofits because it's under the guise of religion. And I think with the Mormon Church is so high control, you can't just start your own Mormon church. It's all under the same board of elders, the same situation. It's not like something that just pops up anywhere. Scientology, extremely high control. Marisol Nichols can't start a church of Scientology. It's all L. Ron Hubbard, it's all David Miscavige. And Ashton Kutcher, not having a faith and being in Hollywood, can't start like a random Hollywood nonprofit. But I wonder if for tax reasons or for image reasons, they're recommended to do those things. So what do? They start nonprofits. And I think the emotional charge and the seriousness of the nonprofits that they've started just hints at something really nefarious under the surface. And maybe it's just tax evasion. Maybe it's just, tax exempt money that they're able to move around. I've seen a lot of churches that I'm very convinced are laundering money. And Hillsong, a whistleblower, has come forward and accused them of laundering money and moving money around international borders the same way they move children around international borders. So I think it could be for a lot of reasons. And it's so gross. It's so gross to pick something so sad and so misunderstood and so emotional for so many people to do that and to hide whatever it is you're doing.
Well, and it's gross, you guys, because I mean, for me, for example, it's like I know what those kids inside those hotels are going through, and firsthand, right?
Mhm.
Because I lived it, so I know the type of scars that are going to be inflicted on every kid they have in there today. And
Yeah.
and the fact is that we have all of these millions being, swooshing all around without helping the problem. And it's like, how? How? And then how is the IRS that has the ability to audit, the ability to check? I mean, again, it's like the checks and balances are there. And even the laws, Cassie, like, I've dug into the laws, and the laws are very clear about what trafficking is, the coercion, the fraud. Like, this is not
Yeah.
earth rocket science, right? It's not like, oh,
Mhm.
you really have to study all these other things. It's like the blueprint is there, but it's this like willingness of America to play dumb, willingness of the
Mhm.
corporate media to just sensationalize, because it's all just a cash grab after all. Even for them, it's like they every reporting that they do is so superficial, is so nothing, right? And it's like, why are these people not doing investigations? Like, I thought that was what they were supposed to do. I mean, like,
Yeah. Yeah, it's like investigate these organizations. And it's sad for the kids that are actually being trafficked, right? That aren't being helped because it is a real thing. So, where's the help for the kids that are being ignored in all of this?
so absolutely. Let's see if we have some questions here from our viewers today. Hello, Peggy. Hi, Cornelius. Hi, Amy.
Hey, everybody.
Oh, here's this from Jenna. She says Scientology needs to lose their tax exempt status because of the way that they use those dollars. They hire private investigators to harass and frighten witnesses, victims, and creators. So,
Mhm.
because there's only about 30 to 40 Scientologists that are on SPTV, we are going to do this for them. We are 200 plus, 200,000 plus of us that are going to get Scientology's tax exempt status removed. And it's a beautiful thing. On October 16, one letter, not an email. Emails can be erased so easy. And one anonymous letter directly to the IRS on October 16 from each of us. So please participate. The more letters, the more chances. We need bags of mail delivered on week of October 16, and it will change everything. So thank you, Jenna, for bringing that up, because I think that's important
Yeah.
that we take action steps that actually start doing something about the problem, right? Like, we have to actually increase the pressure for these people not to just be allowed to, willy nilly do whatever in the hell they do. As long as they don't get called out, nothing is ever going to change. So I love that idea of actual sending physical letters that these agencies receive, so that they can start feeling the actual pressure. And if they don't do their job, something really bad is going to happen to them, because they're the ones that are enabling it all.
Yeah, I do think the more like the court of public opinion is important in these situations. And the more that, people can be outraged by the reality of these situations and not just the manufactured rage, the more we can, hopefully get something to change. That's what we all want.
And Daria says, sounds like that's been happening for 50 years, using charities to have tax breaks and do PR for those celebrities. At Scientology's anti-woke nonsense, and you have a complete tool for brainwashing. Absolutely, Daria. That's
Mhm.
exactly the model. It's PR. I mean, and even there's a chart. I don't know if you've seen it, Cassie, but there's a chart of Tim Ballard where he literally sketched out how all of this PR was actually funneling money to all of this stuff, right? So it's not like we just came up with this idea that he's doing this. Like, he literally put it on a chart.
Yeah.
Have you
He
seen that?
had a meeting, wrote it up, and said, funnel all of this into timballard.com. We'll put all of that money in an actual LLC, not a nonprofit, and then use that money to continue bolstering his celebrity status. It's gross.
Absolutely.
It's so horrific.
Jenna from Cali, the things that Serge has reported should get them shut down. The reason why us writing to the IRS is because we are the public and the IRS knows what Scientology is doing and they don't know that we know. That's such a great point, Jenna, because, you know, we, the victims of this, the IRS can be like, okay, well, you had a problem with it, but now, you know, YouTube being the platform that it is, that is allowing us to be not muzzled and is allowing us to really expose the things that are being done to kids. I mean, that alone is unthinkable.
Yeah. It really is.
Yeah.
I
And
saw
also-
Kelly Copter in the comments.
Oh,
Love
you did?
her. Yes. Love your content, Kelly. I can't star things on this end, but
Here's Daria. These folks are totalitarian capitalists. They put on a benevolent face to tug at the strings of people who want more open, safe world. They're just anti-war greedy folks who don't care to help.
yeah.
Oh, here's Kelly's. Hello, I adore
Yeah.
you both, Serge and Cassie. Thank you for the work you do to speak out about these atrocities. Yeah.
And thank you for your work, Kelly, that you do as well.
Let's see. Turning up the heat. The bullshit is catching up to them. We grew up and we found our voice. Huge flap for them. Exactly. And that's how they would call it in the hotels, Cassie. Flap. So
A
anything
flap.
that could possibly make them, you know, be in danger, they label that a flap. So they're very well aware of their criminal stuff, you guys, and they literally, kid you not, label things flaps, and they have all manner of euphemisms to disguise what's going on. So going back to your point of how these cults work, they really reframe words so that everyone that's an accessory to the crimes, you know, almost becomes unconscious of how they are actually enabling all of that stuff. Cassie.
Yeah. Yep.
So
So gross.
so I think we're left questioning what's going on, you guys, and we are continuing to, you know, we have other stuff that we're working in terms of Thorne and Marisol Nichols for a slavery-free world and Operation Railroad, and we'll be sharing that with all of you. Is there something else that we forgot, Cassie?
I don't think so. Yeah, I definitely am keeping an eye on it. I have some videos on my channel of Operation Underground Railroad in particular, and I will have some more about Thorne and Slavery Free World coming. But yeah, just keep talking about it. Keep it in your awareness. Like see the red flags and look out for things that might come out about these organizations. Question it. Don't just listen to us. Do your own research. Look into why these things are problematic. Look into what other law enforcement agencies have to say, where this information is coming from. Fact check the best that you can on the interwebs. I know it's hard these days, but usually reputable sources, it will be easy. They will stand up to scrutiny. So ask yourself questions. And I think that goes for any celebrity backed nonprofit at this point. If you have celebrities just talking nonstop about one issue in particular, that doesn't mean it's bad or wrong, but look into it, scrutinize it, be willing to criticize, and don't let like your emotions of these really charged subjects cloud your judgment of scrutiny. Because truthfully, we all want to save the children. Nobody is on opposite sides of wanting to save the children. We all want that. So let's make sure that we're saving the children. Let's make sure that children are being helped and not used for profit or helped and then abandoned or literally lied about and not helped at all.
Absolutely, guys. Here's another comment from Tatiana that I wanted to highlight. The most ethical group wouldn't traffic kids, take them out of school, make them work like slaves, and don't get me started on how they treat the elderly. It's all horrible. Yes, Tatiana,
Also bad. Yep.
it's all bad news. It's all
Exactly.
unacceptable. And again, it's all because everyone is exploiting these loopholes, right? It's either, oh, we're artists, so we can really use all these kids because aren't they so lucky to be part of these movies? And
Right.
and again, it's like you cannot consent for a kid. You cannot override their consent and make them work. And, you know, every type of case study we have about kids being forced to do that, Danny Masterson, Drew Barrymore, all of these Hollywood kids end up
Mhm.
totally effed up. I mean, Hollywood's record on effing up people's lives, you guys, could not be more horrific. I mean, how many kids end up, you know, with drug overdoses and just in unthinkable places because, again, it's all these structures of power that are commoditizing humans, exploiting them, and pretending that this is the way it goes, you know. And I think that in this year 2023 we're starting to question what has been pitched as very normal and that we should all really accept it, you know. So I think that would be a good
Yep.
thing to ask ourselves. So, well,
I
thank you
agree.
so much for joining us today, guys. Please follow Cassie
Yeah.
Marie at No Culty Vibes and
Yep.
definitely like the video so we can get more people that are interested in helping kids start learning these things that we are finding out for ourselves. So we really can start questioning what in the hell is going on. Any last
Yes,
words
please.
of wisdom, Cassie?
I think we covered it.
We covered it. Okay, guys. Well, we'll
Yeah.
be back with you next week with more information. So stay tuned for that. See you guys all very, very soon. Bye bye.
Bye.